He promised to pay back. Heart-wrenching black boy asks a millionaire for milk at 3 a.m. The clock struck 3 in the dead of night. A chilling wind howled through the empty streets, sending chills down the spine of anyone unfortunate enough to be awake. That's when it happened. A soft knock echoed through the grand, ostentatious mansion of billionaire Victor Caldwell, a man with more money than he could ever spend. But on this night, the only thing that seemed important was that knock. Outside, cloaked in shadow, stood a small, frail figure. A boy, no older than 12, with tear-streaked cheeks and a trembling lip. His oversized parka swallowed him like a ghost from the past, the threads worn thin and threadbare. He looked up at the mansion, this palace filled with luxury and dreams, where gold chandeliers dangled like frigid stars. But this boy wasn't here for riches. No, he was here for something far simpler. Milk. He shifted nervously. It was past midnight. What could have driven him to the millionaire's door at this hour? His eyes darted around, searching the darkness for danger. Could someone be watching? The boy's heart raced, a tightness in his chest that felt like a vice, choking him with each anxious breath. He could almost hear the voiceless whispers of a world that had forgotten him. Why are you here? What do you want? But desperation overrode fear. He raised his hand and knocked again, louder this time, the sound resonating through the mansion like a gunshot. The door swung open. Victor stood there, framed in the light, his eyes narrowing in confusion. What do you want at this hour? His voice was a low rumble, filled with the authority of a man and used to being questioned. I just need, the boy stammered, voice barely above a whisper. I promised my little sister I'd bring back milk. She is sick, please. A lump formed in Victor's throat. How could someone so young be left alone in this world? At that moment, time seemed to freeze. The massive chandelier above sparkled ominously, casting shadows of doubt across Victor's face. Was this a cruel trick? Or was it genuine? The tension thickened like fog rolling in off a cold sea. Could this midnight visit change both their lives forever, or would it spiral into disaster? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Victor hesitated, struck by a rare mix of emotions. Doubt and compassion waged war in his chest. And just like that, the clock continued to tick ominously forward. As he considered letting this boy into his world, the shadows shifted once more, whispering secrets louder than the stillness of the night. What was truly at stake here? What awaited them both on this peculiar path? The boy's life hung in the balance, and as the door hovered ajar, something far more sinister than hunger lurked in the darkness. Victor's mind raced, battling the storm of emotions inside him. He glanced past the boy into the night, searching for anything that could explain this unexpected encounter. But the cold air offered no answers, only a bitter bite that nipped at his skin. Come in, he finally said, his voice thick and heavy. The boy hesitated for a moment, as if unsure whether to trust this sudden twist of fate. But the need in his eyes was undeniable, a fierce determination overshadowing the fear that clung to him. Victor stepped aside, opening the door wider, inviting the frail figure into his lavish domain. As the boy crossed the threshold, a shiver ran through him, more from the weight of the mansion's silence than from the chill of the outside air. Everything around him glittered gold accents, marble floors, and furniture that spoke of indulgence, but none of it felt welcoming. Sit. Victor gestured to a plush sofa that looked like a throne compared to the boy's life on the streets. The boy lowered himself gingerly onto the edge, his eyes still darting around, soaking in the unfamiliar grandeur. Milk, the boy reminded hesitantly, his small voice barely breaking through the opulent stillness. Yes, of course, Victor replied, his mind still wrestling with disbelief. He moved towards the kitchen, the sight of the boy's shivering frame pushing him to act. A strange sense of urgency tugged at him, a feeling that he should do more than simply provide a glass of milk. Moments later, The boy heard the sound of glass clinking against a counter, followed by the soft rush of milk pouring. Victor returned holding a tall glass, condensation already forming an icy bead on the outside. He offered it to the boy, who accepted it with shaking hands. "Thank you," the boy said as he took a tentative sip, eyes widening at the taste. It had been so long since he had experienced this simple pleasure. "You're welcome. You said your sister is sick?" Victor pressed, his curiosity now ignited. The boy nodded, looking down as shadowed memories began to seep into their conversation. "Yes, she has 3. She can't eat. Just needs milk. Mom's not around. She left." The boy's voice faltered, and he shifted uncomfortably. A flicker of pain sparked in Victor's chest at the boy's words, and for a moment, the millionaire's heart softened. "How long has she been sick?" The question hung in the air, heavy and charged, as the boy searched for the right words. "Since last month. We've been living on scraps." I thought maybe the boy's voice trailed off as fresh tears brimmed in his eyes that Victor's defenses crumbled. He felt the weight of his privilege pressing down on him like a lead blanket. Here was a child, fragile and desperate, who had wrestled with life in ways he could hardly fathom. "I can help. I can get her medicine," he offered suddenly, surprising even himself with his response. The boy looked up, hope sparking amidst the sadness, the flicker of possibility that maybe, just maybe, life could change. "You would?" "Yes. Let me help you." But the boy's gaze shifted cautiously, as if he could sense an unseen danger, a trap hidden beneath Victor's seemingly generous offer. Suddenly, the warmth of compassion met the cold winds of reality, and Victor realized he was standing on the edge of a decision that could unravel all he had built. As he pondered his next move, the air grew electric, thick with unspoken implications. Did this boy hold the key to unlocking something within him? Or would stepping into this child's chaotic world unleash darkness he had long kept at bay? The clock ticked louder, counting down moments as pressure built around them, and just beyond the windows, shadows flickered. Something was watching something hungry. And then, the doorbell rang, piercing through the tension like a startled gasp. Who could it be at this hour? Victor's heart raced, and for the boy, fear returned once more. Victor's pulse quickened. The doorbell's chime echoed through the sprawling mansion, an unwelcome interruption that felt like a warning. The boy froze on the couch, eyes wide, brimming with fear. Victor shot him a reassuring glance, even though he was uncertain about what lay behind that door. "Wait here," he whispered. There was a knot tightening in his chest, heavy with an unshakable dread. He moved cautiously toward the entrance, each step echoing off the marble floor, the tension weaving a tight web around him. The door's ornate frame loomed in front of him. He peeked through the peephole. His breath hitched. A figure stood outside, obscured by darkness. "Who is it?" Victor called, trying to keep his voice steady. "Sir, it's me, Ralph." The voice was smooth, almost silk-like, but Victor could hear a strange edge beneath it. Ralph was one of his business associates, a face of privilege that belonged to the same circle of wealthy elites Victor had distanced himself from. The kind of man who didn't understand the desperation he had just seen in the boy. "Why are you here? Can I come in? We need to talk about the deal." East's tone suggested urgency, but Victor felt a chill ripple down his spine. Normal dealings could wait. How was he supposed to discuss anything when a sick child was back on his mind? "I can't right now." The door didn't budge before Ralph pushed against it, his frame blocking the light from the hallway. "Victor, this is important." The boy was still inside, alone and unguarded. Victor's instincts screamed at him to protect his unlikely guest. The slightest moment of vulnerability could bring disaster. He hesitated, physically torn between two worlds, the plush security of his mansion and the gut-wrenching reality the boy had shared. "Hold on," he barked, stepping back slightly and bolting the door. His heart thudded loudly in response to Ralph's impatient knocking. He couldn't let Ralph see the boy. He wouldn't be able to deal with the scrutiny and pity that would follow. "Ralph, please," he said, syllables weighted with stress. "I told you later." He glanced back at the boy, who appeared small and frightened, inching deeper into the sofa's shadows. The flickering of the lights seemed to echo his inner turmoil. Ralph persisted, pounding against the door. "You're making a mistake. Think about the consequences." Consequences. The word hung heavily in the air. In that moment, Victor realized that the boy represented another path, an echo of a childhood that was dirty, cold, and filled with yearning, contrasting sharply with the privilege he had long clung to. Would choosing to help mean letting in more chaos, and did he even want to open that door? With a deep breath, Victor steadied himself against the wall, gripping the edge of the doorframe. You need to go. I can't talk right now. Victor, stop playing games. I know about the boy. The icy grip of panic tightened around Victor. What do you mean? Just open the door and let me in. We can solve this together. Victor's mind raced. He turned toward the boy, meeting his distressed gaze the flicker of hope, now clouded with uncertainty. The walls of the mansion felt like they were closing in on him. As if time had shifted, Ralph's voice grew louder, almost menacing. If you think you can protect him, you're in over your head. In that moment, everything inside Victor twisted tight. Shadowy revelations loomed large, memories and secrets twisting together in a storm. What had he unknowingly stepped into? Mister. The boy's voice trembled as it broke the thick tension. Is it safe? Victor turned toward him, confusion spiraling. Was he, a millionaire, truly capable of protecting someone so innocent from the dark forces swirling around him? The door rattled in its frame, a thunderous crack of fate. Whatever happens, stick with me. Victor steeled himself, ready to confront the darkness lurking beyond the threshold. But just as he thought he was ready, a deafening crash echoed from the door, splintering their moment of tentative safety. And then, silence what was waiting for them on the other side. The silence inside the mansion was suffocating. Victor's heart thudded painfully against his ribcage, the sound overwhelming in the oppressive quiet that followed the crash. He held his breath, waiting, straining to hear any sound beyond the barricaded door. The boy gasped softly, the fear etched on his face just as raw and desperate as before. His little hands trembled slightly as he clutched the edge of the couch. Mister, I'm scared, he whispered, voice quaking. Victor felt his throat constrict. There was no way he could let this child down. Before he could respond, footsteps thundered on the other side of the door, heavy and deliberate. Ralph's voice surged from the dark, edged with authority that sent shivers racing down Victor's spine. Open this door. We can't waste time. Victor's mind raced. Ralph might be right. Whatever was waiting out there could spell disaster, not just for him, but for the boy who had placed his trust in him. Victor, Ralph continued, his tone hardening, you're not just in trouble. You've put both your lives at risk. Open the door. Another crash echoed, more forceful this time. The door seemed to rock in its frame. Victor felt an urgent pang of panic flutter in his chest. If Ralph made good on his threats, if he got inside, what then? Stay behind me, Victor said, taking a step closer to the boy. He raised his voice, trembling but fierce. I'm not letting you in, Ralph. Whatever you think you know, it doesn't concern you. An eerie laugh escaped Ralph on the other side. Oh, Victor, you really don't know what you're doing. This isn't just about you. There are people who will look for that boy, people far worse than me. Victor felt a surge of anger rise within him, puncturing through his fears. I won't let you hurt him, he spat, instinctively stepping closer to the door, as if his body might shield the child from an unseen threat. Then, with a crack that sent shards of wood glinting across the marble floor, the door lurched open just enough to reveal a darkened silhouette. Victor's world narrowed to that ominous figure, barely visible under the pall of the entrance light. Ralph's eyes gleamed maliciously, a smirk playing on his lips. You're foolish if you think you can protect him, but you have no idea the price of your defiance. As Ralph twisted his body, pushing against the hinge of the door, Victor felt every nerve-ending scream. He lunged, trying to shove the door closed. No, get away from him. In the scuffle, Victor caught a glimpse of something much darker lurking behind Ralph, shadows shifting and slipping away into the night. Another presence had arrived, one that felt even more menacing. Footsteps approached quickly, people looming outside now, voices hushed but urgent. Victor, Ralph shouted, you can't hide from this. Open the door. Hands clawed at the edges, pushing their way in. The boy whimpered softly behind Victor, and he turned back, eyes wide and frightful. What would we do? The air thickened with tension as Victor stole a glance back at the door. There was no time for fear now. He'd come too far to let everything crumble. Move. We're getting out of here, he shouted, gripping the boy's arm, guiding him toward another exit. The dappled light from outside flickered wildly, casting long shadows that danced ominously along the walls. Yet as they turned, the sound of banging intensified, and Victor's breath caught in horror. They weren't alone. The true nightmare was inside his own home. "Where do we go?" the boy whimpered. "Anywhere but here," Victor replied, every second feeling heavier, the walls closing in. "We'll find a way to escape, but would it be enough?" And then, from the back of the mansion, he heard the unmistakable crack of glass shattering. Could they possibly evade the darkness? Or was it already too late? Victor's heart raced as he pulled the boy closer, locking eyes with him. Those innocent, terrified eyes mirrored a world of anguish he had never wanted to see. Time felt like quicksand, slipping away as chaos loomed just beyond the walls of their sanctuary. The back of the mansion felt oppressive now, every crackle and echo amplified, twisting into muffled threats in the shadows. Through the kitchen, Victor said, practically dragging the boy along as they hurried through darkened hallways littered with memories of laughter now undone by fear. With every step, his instinct screamed at him. Ralph was out there. Whatever had awakened in the house was quickening, lurking like a beast ready to pounce. Victor's mind flickered back to Ralph's chilling words. People far worse were on their way. Who were these people? What did they want with the boy? They burst into the kitchen, the dim light casting a sickly glow over the cold tile. Victor quickly scanned the room. The kitchen window. It was their only shot. He pushed aside the kitchen table, its wood scraping painfully against the floor as he yanked it into place. "Help me with this," he urged, adrenaline surging. The boy hesitated, fear etched in his small features. "What if they catch us? Then we run faster," Victor promised, his voice fierce, realigning his focus. He needed that boy to trust him. They were a team now, survivors in a world gone mad. Together they shoved against the table, their breath gasping in rhythm, desperation fueling every ounce of strength. Finally, the window fluttered open, a torrent of cold air rushing into the room. Victor could hear movement outside, muffled voices creeping closer. He didn't know how much time they had left. He boosted the boy up, urging him with shaky hands. "Climb through." Uncertainty clouded the boy's expression, but the urgency in Victor's eyes ignited a flicker of resolve. He clambered onto the counter, feet unsteady as he slid under Victor's guidance through the narrow opening. Just as Victor felt a wave of relief wash over him, a crash echoed from the hallway, shaking loose the safety he thought they had. "Victor!" the boy called from outside, panic deepening in his voice as he dangled there, half in, half out, a frightened bird caught in a storm. With the sound of heavy footsteps and Ralph's voice rising through the floor like an ominous siren, Victor reached out, grasping the boy's hand. "Jump! I've got you." The child leapt into Victor's arms, just as a shadow appeared in the doorway behind them. Victor spun around, a frigid prickle dancing down his spine. It was Ralph standing there, silhouetted against the fading light, like a predator who had just found his prey. "Flee all you want," Ralph taunted, his tone dripping with sadistic pleasure. "You can't escape the truth. You're tied to a fate you don't even understand." As the boy clung to Victor, terror swimming in his wide eyes, a sudden insight jolted through Victor. Who was chasing this child? What had he stumbled into? Out the back. He shoved himself into motion again, sprinting towards what he hoped was freedom, the harsh reality dangling behind him, whispering promises of despair. In the chaos, he didn't see the shadow shift. He didn't see the details, a glimmer of steel against the dark, the stolen breaths of hidden watchers until everything erupted. Flashes ignited in the distance, voices rose in alarms, and Victor's gut wrenched with a realization. They were surrounded. He reached the back door, desperation clawing at his throat. "We have to go now?" But just as he hesitated to turn the knob, a scream pierced the air, a heartbreakingly beautiful sound that shattered his last hope. Now they were trapped, and in the shadows, the real horrors began their march. What nightmare awaited them on the other side? Would it mark the end, or would they find a way to fight back? The air thickened around Victor as he gripped the doorknob, his heart pounding like a war drum. The boy whimpered behind him, a small voice teetering on the edge of despair. "What is happening, Victor?" "Stay quiet," Victor whispered, straining to listen. The scream that echoed through the mansion had unleashed chaos beyond the door. He could hear shouts growing closer, the sound of heavy boots marching in unison, a relentless wave of terror that threatened to crash over them. Victor tightened his grip. They couldn't go back toward Ralph. That was death waiting to happen. But the screams, they ignited something primal in him, fear and adrenaline coursing through his veins, igniting his instincts to survive. "We have to find another way," he murmured, glancing at the boy. It was time to think, to be smart. There was an old cellar just beyond the kitchen, a secret place buried in the past. It felt like it was the only option left. If they could slip past the front and out the back, they might find a way down. With the boy's hand firm in his, he turned from the door, determination hardening his heart against the rising panic. "Victor, please," the boy's voice quivered, but there was desire for action buried underneath that fear. It flickered like a flame. Victor nodded, his resolve stitching hope from the tattered fabric of their reality. He led the way back through the kitchen, his mind racing. The time ticking down felt suffocating, but he blocked out everything else. Shadows danced, taunting him from the corners. He could feel Ralph's presence lingering, a dark cloud that followed him. Suddenly, the sound of laughter echoed from the hallway, a sick, twisted laugh that chilled Victor to the bone. It was otherworldly, a signal that the hunt was on. "Keep going," he urged, his voice a low growl as they made their way to the cellar door concealed beneath a dusty rug. He pulled at the handle, its resistance almost mocking. But with a hard shove, it creaked open, revealing the abyss below. The musky scent of damp earth hit them. It was dark, almost consuming. But darkness felt safer than the chaos of the mansion. "Get in." The boy hesitated at the edge, peering into the yawning void. "What if someone finds us down there?" "They want tea," Victor insisted, trying to quell the tremor in his own voice. The words spilled out, but deep down, the truth gnawed at him. There was no guarantee of safety anywhere. "Just trust me." With a determined nod, the boy jumped in, feet landing on rickety stairs that creaked ominously under their weight. Victor followed, heart racing as he allowed himself just a second to look back. All he could see was the distrustful gloom pulsating as their escape route slowly swallowed them. Down in the cellar, he fumbled for a light switch, finally connecting with the cold, rusted metal. Flicking it on, the small bulb sputtered to life, illuminating the room filled with forgotten relics and dust-thick memories. He could see the kid's face easily now, wider eyes, flushed cheeks. "Victor, what are we going to do?" "I don't know yet," he answered, the honesty of it nearly pulling him under. "But we'll think of something." A loud crash erupted from above, shaking dust from the ceiling. They both flinched, tension tightening Victor's chest. "We need to move." As they maneuvered through the dim room filled with the smell of mildew and decay, Victor's thoughts spiraled back to Ralph's taunt. The truth. Was there something deeper tied to this chaos? Out of the corner of his eye, he caught sight of a small, locked chest set against the wall. Something about it called to him, an instinct whispering that the answers might be locked away inside. Just as he reached for it, the sound of footsteps thudded once again overhead, and he wondered what foul company was lingering just above them. If Ralph found them here, it would be like laying out a feast for the predator. Victor, the boy's voice trembled, pulling him from his thoughts. "Do you think they know we're down here?" "What if they do?" Victor replied, his voice defiant. The boy needed to hear strength, not uncertainty. "We'll face it together." Suddenly, the lock on the chest clicked open. Was it fate? Or had something more sinister just awoken? Each moment throbbed with tension. As the lid creaked open, shadows of doubts lingered, the question haunting him. What newfound terror awaited them within? Victor's breath hitched in his throat as the chest opened, an ancient groan escaping its hinges. What lay inside felt like more than just a mystery. It was a spark connecting to the dread creeping just above their heads. The dim bulb flickered, and for a heartbeat, shadows danced, creating shapes that teased Victor's fraying sanity. Silence fell, heavy and cloying. The boy edged closer, eyes glued to the chest's contents. Inside was a tangle of musty papers beside a gleaming object, an old silver locket, dulled by time, but glinting with a promise of secrets. The papers held a yellowed gaze, the edges caramelized as if they had absorbed sorrow from the air that surrounded them. "Victor," the boy whispered, a quiver lacing his voice. "What if it's dangerous?" But Victor was already sifting through the papers, his fingers trembling. He could feel his heart pounding in his ears, drowning out the chaotic laughter from above. "Just stay close," he muttered, focused, searching for anything that might offer direction, clarity, or anything but despair. The first sheet he snatched was an old letter. Its ink faded, but the words burned with resentment, a plea for help that felt somehow familiar. Victor squinted to read. It was a promise made, perhaps decades ago, a desperate call for salvation echoing through time. "There's something here," he murmured, his voice barely audible. "We should go," the boy urged, his voice tinged with panic. Victor shook his head, captivated. As he pieced together the fragmented thoughts, a name jumped out at him: Ralph. It felt like a jolt of electricity coursing through him. This wasn't just a relic. It was a link, a revelation. What does it say? The boy leaned in, eyes wide, mixing fear with hope. A family feud, something about betrayal and revenge. Victor paused, his gut churning. The locket belonged to Ralph's mother. The boy's eyes darkened. Maybe we shouldn't mess with it, then what if Ralph is involved? But anger clashed within Victor as realization dawned. He is tied to this. It explains everything. The more he read, the more he felt the threads of fate weaving tighter around him, pulling him closer to the heart of the darkness that engulfed the mansion. Another crash from above sent a shower of dust raining down on them. Victor's heart dropped as he turned to the stairs. The muffled voices grew louder, panic rippling through him. "They're coming. We need to hide." He yanked the locket free, its cool surface brushing against his palm, and shoved it into his pocket. "We have to move, quick." They darted into the shadows of the cellar, wedging themselves behind piles of forgotten junk, while Victor clutched the locket like a lifeline. The stairs creaked ominously overhead. He could hear footsteps now. A low whisper fluttered through the air like a moth. "Where are they?" That laugh again, it was Ralph, twisted with glee. Each word dripped with menace, fueling Victor's resolve. He wasn't just running anymore. He was fighting back. "Victor, I can't." The boy's voice shook, barely a whisper. "Trust me. I know what we've got to do." Victor hissed, trembling with the weight of both the realization and their fragile safety. They had what they needed, a clue, a piece of the puzzle that could shift the balance of power in their favor. Just as the footsteps passed directly overhead, the dim bulb flickered, illuminating the boy's fear-filled eyes and igniting a renewed determination inside Victor. "We're not just going to hide," he said, voice low but fierce. "We're going to find the truth." The echo of Ralph's laughter faded, and as Victor contemplated their next move, he felt the cold locket pulse against his heart like a war drum. They were on the brink of something far deeper than simply survival, something that could change everything. But just as they caught their breath, the wooden beams supporting the stairs creaked ominously again above them. A shadow slipped through the narrow gap. "Victor?" the boy murmured, his voice a threadbare whisper of fear. Something shifted in the darkness. Victor's heart plummeted. The shadows were alive, and the game had just begun. What would they unearth as they confronted the hunter lurking in the depths of night? Would the secrets they uncover empower them or seal their fates, drawing them deeper into the cursed history of the mansion? The shadows seemed to stretch, twisting into grotesque shapes that threatened to engulf them. Victor held his breath, sensing the weight of the moment. The air felt charged, each second a taut string pulled tight, waiting to snap. As he squinted into the darkness, he could make out the silhouette of a figure shifting just beyond the stairs above, swathed in dim light. "Victor, we should really go," the boy whimpered, his heart racing so fast that Victor could almost hear it over the creaking floorboards. "Not yet," Victor replied, his voice steady despite the tremors wrestling in his gut. They had already come this far. The locket was more than a mere trinket. It was a key to understanding the vengeance that bound Ralph to this place. He squeezed it against his chest, hoping its cold touch would anchor him. Ralph's laugh echoed again, filling the cellar with a taunting energy. "You can't hide forever," he shouted, his voice dripping with mockery. "I'll find you, and when I do, you'll wish you never stepped foot in this house." The boy shuddered beside him, fear radiating from him like a beacon. "What do we do?" Victor's mind raced. They could wait here and risk being discovered, or they could use the element of surprise. "Listen," he said, lowering his voice. "Ralph thinks we're trapped. We can use this to our advantage. If we sneak out the back, We can find a way to confront him. The boy nodded hesitantly, his eyes still fixated on the stairs. Take my hand, Victor urged, drawing courage from its warmth. Together, they quietly maneuvered around the debris, careful not to make a sound. Each step felt monumental, the weight of the past pressing down on them. As they crept toward the back of the cellar, Victor's senses heightened. He could almost feel the malicious intent radiating from Ralph, his laughter becoming a sinister soundtrack to their escape. The nearer they got to the back door, the more the pressure built in Victor's chest. Suddenly, a crash echoed from above as something toppled over, a loud, violent shriek piercing the heaviness. "I know you're down there," Ralph yelled, his once playful tone now laced with fury. "Playing hide and seek is over." Panic surged through Victor's veins. He dashed toward the door, fumbling with the rusty handle. It stuck. He hissed, trying again but meeting only resistance. "Come out," Ralph's voice thundered. "You can't hide from me." The boy's grip tightened. "Victor, I want to go home." His voice cracked, revealing layers of desperation. "No, we can't back down now." Victor's determination wavered, yet he knew they had to act. Glancing around, he spotted a broken crate nearby. Without thinking, he grabbed a piece of wood and slammed it against the door. Repeatedly. "Victor!" The boy gasped, but Victor kept striking, intention blazing within. The door shuddered under the impact, the splintering wood echoing their resolve. "Let us go." "We push through together," Victor roared, forcing the last of his strength into one final swing. With a loud crack, the door splintered free. Light poured in, illuminating the chaos that had seeped into the shadows. Raising his arms as a shield, Victor charged through, pulling the boy behind him. They stumbled into the nighttime air, heart racing as the thrill of escape staggered through them. The mansion loomed dark and threatening behind, but Ralph's laughter faded, replaced by their own wild breaths. "Where do we go?" the boy asked wide-eyed. "Anywhere, just away from here," Victor replied, racing down the worn path. They weren't safe yet, but the night held promise. The truth was out there, waiting to be uncovered. As they reached the edge of the property, a chill ran through Victor, the locket cold against his skin. What lay ahead was unknown, but he couldn't shake the feeling that Ralph was never far behind. He could almost hear the boy's silent question, "What have they awakened?" And as the night stretched on, whispering secrets from the shadows, Victor realized the greater battle was yet to come, wide open and waiting. But that thought only lingered as darkness pulled further around them. A promise had been made, and he was determined to see it fulfilled or perish trying. What secrets would surface now that they had crossed the threshold? They kept moving, putting distance between themselves and the mansion that loomed behind them like a dark specter. Each step felt like a victory, but the adrenaline coursing through Victor wasn't entirely freeing. Every whispered breath, every rustle of bushes to the side sent his heart into a frantic race. "Do you think he saw us?" the boy whispered, panting as he trotted beside Victor. His voice trembled, revealing the terror still clinging to him. "I don't know," Victor replied, his eyes scanning the tree-line. "But we have to keep going. If Ralph gets a scent of us, it won't end well." He blurted that last part out, but deep inside, he felt doubt claw at him. Ralph didn't just stalk, he hunted. The thought of being tracked like prey made Victor's skin crawl. They reached the edge of the property, the trees looming with a menacing stillness, the moon offering only a sliver of cold light. "Stay close," Victor ordered. Moving deeper into the forest, the world transformed around them. Shadows mingled, shimmering in the moonlight like dark phantoms. A chill swept through the air, making Victor clench the locket tightly. "What is wrong with the locket?" the boy asked, catching the glint of metal even in the dim light. It had belonged to Ralph's mother, Victor said, his heart heavy with the weight of the truth. "She gave it to him before she died. I think it holds something important, something dark." "Like what?" "I don't know yet," he admitted, feeling the unease settle in the pit of his stomach. "But I think Ralph believes it gives him power. If we can figure that out." A snap came from the underbrush, sending a jolt through Victor. He spun around, eyes wide. "Did you hear that?" "Why, yes," the boy squeaked, his voice barely above a whisper. Victor held a finger to his lips, urging silence. The night seemed to breathe around them, heavy with expectancy. In that pulse of stillness, shadows shifted again, and Victor felt an almost magnetic pull towards the darkness. Was it Ralph? The thought made his blood run cold. If answering his unvoiced fears, a gravelly voice emerged from the shadows. You think you can run from me? You're wrong. Victor's breath hitched. Ralph stepped into view, eyes glinting with malice. He looked every bit the monster Victor imagined, a twisted grin spreading across his face. In one hand, he gripped a rusted knife, the blade catching the light. Leave us alone, Victor shouted, though his voice broke, his facade of courage cracking in the face of pure terror. Oh, you're in my world now, Ralph replied, his tone sickly sweet. You're the ones who unwittingly awakened all of it. And you will pay. The boy's grip tightened around Victor's arm. They had nowhere to escape, nowhere to hide. Panic flooded through him. He had thought they'd gained ground, but it was slipping away, washed over by darkness. Victor spotted a thick tree. Run for that cover, he yelled, urging the boy forward as he turned to block Ralph's path. The knife shimmered in the moonlight, sending a shiver through Victor. Just as they raced to the tree, Ralph lunged, swinging the knife through the air. Victor dove, shoving the boy ahead of him and rolling sideways. The blade missed him by a hair, but nicked the bark, sending splinters flying into the night. The sound rang out, shattering the forest's eerie quiet. Go! Victor screamed, screaming for the boy to keep moving. But just then, Ralph's laughter pierced through the night once again. You think you can escape so easily? This is only the beginning. Victor's heart wanted to sink into the pit of despair. He could feel the tides of darkness circling them, and Ralph's presence was suffocating. As he caught up and they pressed themselves against the tree, panting for refuge, Victor's mind raced. They had to find out what the locket was hiding, but would that even be enough? With Ralph exploding the night behind them, time was running out. Victor the boy whispered, eyes wide. What if we can't stop him? Victor's gaze hardened, resolution flooding back. We will, he said firmly, knowing he had to protect them both. But first, we need a plan. Without waiting for his companion's response, Victor glanced back at Ralph, who had circled around them, his predatory smile a ghostly promise of chaos to come. Behind the knife flashed something more, a spark of twisted memories and vengeance lost to time, but a loud rustling from deeper in the woods stopped them cold. Something was coming, and whatever it was beyond Ralph. Victor, what now? He swallowed the lump in his throat, dread gnawing at his insides. Ahead, dark shapes loomed, and tension thickened in the air like fog. Ralph's laughter melded with an unseen force, both vibrating across the stillness. This wasn't just about escaping anymore. It was about survival, about confronting the monsters both outside and within. Hold on, Victor murmured, staring into the abyss, where the real horror awaited. We're just getting started. As another crashing sound echoed, dread curled up his spine. Who or what was emerging from the shadows? The darkness in the woods took on a life of its own, wrapping around Victor and the boy like a suffocating blanket. They stood frozen, listening as the rustling grew louder, an ominous chorus of branches snapping and leaves crunching underfoot. Victor took a deep breath, filled with dread and determination. He had to protect this child, no matter the cost. Stay close to me, Victor said, his voice low and steady. Suddenly, from the underbrush, a shadow leapt into view. It wasn't Ralph this time. It was another boy, slightly older, with wild hair and a face etched with fear. He skidded to a halt, eyes wide as he caught sight of them. Are you okay? He stammered. What are you doing here? Victor demanded, scanning the surrounding trees for Ralph. The last thing they needed was another mouth to protect. I saw Ralph chasing you, the newcomer replied breathlessly. He's not what he seems. You have to come with me now? The urgency in his voice ignited a flicker of hope in Victor's heart. Where? He asked, glancing at the boy beside him, whose wide eyes reflected the terror that was too familiar. Follow me. Without waiting for a reply, the older boy turned on his heel and ran deeper into the woods. Victor exchanged a quick look with the boy in his charge. This could be a trap, or it could be their salvation. Come on, Victor urged, pulling the younger boy along after the stranger. They dashed after him, heart racing, propelled by a mix of fear and adrenaline. Branches whipped at their faces as they propelled themselves forward, limbs pumping with a frantic rhythm. Ralph's real name is much worse, The older boy explained, glancing back at them, breathless but clearly set on his mission. It's south tied to this place. He is hunting you because of the locket. What do you mean? Victor asked, fear coiling in his stomach. Just trust me. The older boy shouted, leading them toward a clearing where the moonlight washed over an ancient stone structure covered in vines. In here, they ducked inside just as another echoing laugh pierced the night behind them. Ralph was still tracking them, despair hanging in the air as they entered the cool shadows of the ruins. It felt like stepping into a different world, everything thick with history and secrets. Ralph is searching for something he thinks belongs to him, the older boy wheezed, looking back toward the entrance. But he doesn't know that this place has a purpose. What kind of purpose? The younger boy whispered, clutching Victor's arm tightly. This is where the stories end and begin the legends of betrayal, family, and loss. We can ward him off with the locket. Victor's heart sank even more. But I don't know what it means. The older boy turned grave, urgency flooding his voice. Then it's time to find out. Victor felt the weight of the locket around his neck, a connection to a fractured history that felt heavier than he could carry. He fished it out, cold metal cooling against his palm. Open it, the older boy instructed. You need to see what's inside. With trembling hands, Victor pulled the locket apart. Inside, wedged between two old photographs, lay a crumpled note, barely discernible through the dust of age. He unfolded it with care, heart racing with anticipation. As he began to read, the shadows outside shifted, the laughter growing louder as Ralph's voice echoed in frenzy. You can't hide forever. Striking a match to light the way, Victor peered closer into the note. In messy, hurried handwriting, it detailed a long-lost family feud, a legacy tied not just to Ralph, but to the very mansion they had fled. Betrayal poisoned the roots of his lineage, buried in blood-soaked secrets and the pursuit of vengeance across secluded nights. This is what he wants, Victor realized, breath catching in his throat. He thinks the locket gives him a claim, a power to control what's buried here. But the older boy shook his head. It's not about control, it's about breaking the cycle. You can choose differently, break the ties that bind. A roar echoed around them. Ralph's fury unleashed as he approached. You're out of time, Victor. Hand over the locket. What do we do? The younger boy cried out. Stay behind me, Victor shouted, determination flooding his every nerve. He clutched the locket tightly, looking to the stone walls around them. We can't let him have it. We can fight this. As Ralph lunged into the clearing like a wolf, eyes blazing with madness, Victor shouted a series of words from the note, the dense syllables feeling powerful and freeing. With every shout, he felt the weight of his privilege stir as a force surged through him. Something was crackling in the air. Ralph screamed, the words echoing back, wrapping around him like chains as he staggered, surprise washing over his face. No, you can't stay away. He clawed at the power of the locket but kept stumbling backward, fear shattering the madness. Victor and the boys stood firm, hearts pounding, emboldened by the truth unleashed. You can't own this power, Victor declared. Just then, the shadows twisted, coiling closer around Ralph as if the very secrets of the mansion were exacting their retribution. No, I am not weak, Ralph shouted, voice cracking in desperation and fury, but the darkness was relentless. The boy beside Victor gripped his arm tightly, all mixed with terror in his voice. Is it working? Yes. Victor felt the surge, the pulse of strength resonating from within the locket. Unity. The bond between them all formed in that frantic moment. With one final shout, as Ralph fell deeper into the shadows that swirled around him like a nightmare come to life, Victor took a step forward. You're not my fate to fulfill, Ralph. We are breaking free from this. The cycle ends tonight. A terrifying howl cut through the air as darkness enveloped Ralph completely, absorbing his madness until he was gone. Lost to the past, he clung to the echoes faded. The silence settled heavy over the clearing, the air suddenly lighter, brighter. Victor felt the boy's glance, a mixture of disbelief and wonder. Did we really do it? The darkness is gone, the older boy said, the weight of their victory palpable in the air. But the truth is what bonds us now. We're free from the chains bound by understanding and hope. With the locket pressed firmly into his pocket, Victor smiled at the two boys beside him. Together, We'll forge a new path, one not dictated by those who came before us. No one deserves to walk in the shadows forever. As dawn broke, a new light spilled through the trees, cleansing the remnants of the night. They stepped out from the darkness of the ruins into a world bursting with possibilities. In that moment, Victor realized the fight hadn't just been to survive. It had been to live. Together, they left the remnants of the mansion and its cursed legacy behind, moving towards a horizon that shimmered with hope, the dawn of a brighter day, a promise for their future. And there, as they walked onward, Victor knew he had finally found the family he never expected. So what about you? What will you take from this story? How will you break your own chains? You need to subscribe now for more exclusive content that speaks to the heart and soul. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep these stories alive. Flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about this intense ending. Let us keep the community alive. And don't wait even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who crave compelling stories like this one. Your support is everything.